could have sworn it was
No, I don't remember that.
in here.
Well, the bottom line is the items 8 through 21. And Carl, 21 you have middle school electric. Did you mean high school on that? Because I know we need a new electric system at the high school too, correct?
Well,
Is that not
it
on
should
here?
say,
Like
it should
high
say
school.
middle and high,
Okay.
but
So these things, which as Cliff says are patches, equal 8,295,000 before you even address education. So you're talking 8.3 million in patches. That doesn't include any of the
Expanded
classroom
education
space.
Right, but if I was to make an educated decision, I'd take the 8 million over the 90 million. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know what that other next number is that we
Well,
really need to do.
Again, we don't have a number on the cost of
Right.
the project, for one thing.
No, I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying this 8.3 million doesn't address any educational issues. None.
Not
They
as,
don't know that necessarily either, or some people aren't gonna care, they say, I'll take the 8 million.
yeah, but all right, the 8 million figure isn't necessarily out there either. This is, again, if we were to sit down and do what you're talking about, which I think involves at least in some degree of another feasibility study to determine how much space we would need
Right.
to add on, how many modulars would have to replace, and a lot of the modulars probably have a life left in them of, what, 5, 10 years.
I'd like to think we're at least, at very, very minimum for 5 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry, I agree with that, but I don't want to be in a school system that we have modular classrooms at our schools. It's just not the way you should.
Obviously, and again, I feel like I'm going to catch 22 here. Obviously, that's why we're doing what we're doing. I mean, we have a feasibility study that's complete, and that's the reason why, is because we don't want to continue on this road. So I think what we're saying is, we have a feasibility study. We're going to determine what it's going to cost to do everything we think we need to do. What Mike was saying, if we don't do that, what's the alternative? The alternative is doing everything that we basically wanted to do in the original feasibility study.
And
So the cost may be off a little bit, but it's going to be much more of a piecemeal adding on of space and fixing systems and things like that.
Yeah.
Without reimbursement,
No, I
probably.
agree, I agree, and I think we're all mean the same thing. My concern is, or my disappointment is, that we don't have that other number. Like, we're going to we're gonna take this to town and say, listen, this is the project, take it or leave it. We're not telling them that if we don't do this, the following town meeting, we're going to push this number down to expand the schools. You know, we should have probably done almost, lateral studies at the same time
Okay.
to find out what the alternative would be.
The feasibility study is in fact addressing what the needs are.
I understand, but if it doesn't get voted in, we still need to address those needs.
That's still.
So what does that cost?
That's still the need.
So are we saying that we're gonna go back to town meeting 6 months later and
That-
pay that all out of our pocket?
That you're not understanding. What the feasibility study is addressing is what we need. And in fact, the least cost way of getting there
In the
is
long run.
through the feasibility study. That
The
is,
MSBA.
this is the least cost way of achieving the needs.
Without a doubt.
So then the argument could.
And we're being chiseled to the extent that we can be chiseled by MSBA to keep the cost down and to control those costs to the maximum extent. So we in fact are looking at the least cost way to get what we need to have for educational facilities. That's being done with this $1 million study we're
Right.
doing. And so, we don't need another study to look at it. This is the study.
So
It's
then the
addressing
argument
the
could be
need.
then, if we don't do the 40, say it's 50%, and we're at 90 million and it goes down to 45 million, then what the argument could be, then it's gonna cost us 90 million on a town vote in
The
the
argument,
future.
the argument could be, Mike, and again, I hate to throw any numbers out there because we don't have any numbers. I don't want people to be looking at numbers
Right.
and right away being scared off. But the argument would be that you're going to end up on a piecemeal basis getting half or 2/3 of what you really need for the same out-of-pocket cost. That would be my position on it. That over the long run, over the next 5 to 10 years, you're gonna be doing projects individually, trying to get maybe some reimbursement for them, but maybe not. Projects that you're gonna end up doing out of necessity, okay, one by one. And the cost of those projects is probably gonna be somewhat less than the overall cost of doing the big project. But without the reimbursement, you're gonna end up spending as much as or more money for less.
To give
That's,
you a sad example, in the year 2001, the old Batchelder septic system failed. we had a very short period of time to address it. We went to town meeting, asked town meeting for $150,000 to build a batch elder septic system, which was a quick turnaround, and it was bonded over 30 years. That septic system lasted, what, 2 or 3 years, and was torn up.
3 years.
3 years, was torn up because it was, we built a new school. And so there's a perfect example of money that was spent. Remember, that was on the tail of...
Out of necessity.
Out of failed overrides.
Yeah.
And we will have several of those kinds of examples, but even much more costly at the middle and high school, where the town will be forced to come in and put a new heating system in the middle school. I'm only talking infrastructure. You're talking enhancements, of course.
Right.
But there'll be many, many more examples of issues in the next
And
5 years.
I just think we need to make that clear for the average person. I
Alright.
don't think we're making that definition clear. Maybe when we start to get numbers in, then we could start comparing
I
numbers.
mean, I think originally when we started this whole process, we wanted to make clear the need for this, and as we highlighted the various types of deficiencies that we had, and that was the need. And then once we established the need, and we had to establish the need on the school committee, we wouldn't have gone forward with this project if we didn't think it was necessary. And then we had to do the same thing with the secondary school building committee, and now that's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what the process is with the MSBA. They're not gonna buy into this project if there isn't a need, and they don't recognize the deficiencies that we have in these two buildings. So that's the whole point. If they don't see that, then they're not gonna approve it.
The experts are all looking at what we have and what we need and saying, you need this different thing. Now, we can all say, oh, we don't believe that, but I don't think any of us are experts.
See, I would, not necessarily label it this way, but I pretty much think it is all or nothing. Because I think what we get that we put before the town, I, as a school committee member, after that vote, if it's voted down, I would never bring that project back to the town and say, now let's do it and pay for it ourselves.
No,
So
you're
to
gonna-
me, it is an all or nothing.
No, you're gonna have to bring back each project as it
Right.
becomes absolutely necessary. If you need a sewage treatment
But
plant.
we're
for
not
it,
gonna get
then you're
what
gonna have to come
but
back
I'm
with that.
saying, we're not gonna get new science labs. We're not gonna get, that's just not gonna happen.
I agree.
That's why I see it as an all or nothing.
I agree.
Because if you don't vote for this, whatever the final
And
project
then,
is,
if it doesn't pass, you're gonna have to come back and address your needs.
right,
Piece by
As
piece.
they,
right,
Yeah.
your infrastructure needs.
right, yeah.
Because no town is ever gonna vote for a $20+ million expansion in addition and not without any aid from the
Right.
state.
Right.
And if we don't vote this down, it doesn't mean we're done with the MSB. If we vote this down, it doesn't mean we're done with the MSBA, but it's gonna take a long time to get back on the list.
If
From
ever.
everything I've
If-
seen.
If ever,
Yeah,
ever. Cause there's only so much funding. I mean,
Right.
there are a lot of other projects that are looking to go forward, still. All right, but I understand what Mike's saying. We need to continue to emphasize the need for the new facility.
but the problem is, we had Wayne here earlier, his staff and he keep these buildings in such good shape.
Keep them running. Keep
And
them running.
the high school is, what, closing in on 60 years old, was built in what, 57? So it's 54 years
58,
old,
yeah,
58, 53 years old. This building's
61.
50 years old,
Yeah.
right? And if you walk around here, they're spotless. You know, if you don't dig deep, these schools look fine. They don't look like the batch looked. When we replaced the batch, all you had to do, we had the principal do a tour, and it was on cable, and all you had to do was watch that, and you knew we needed a new school. Of course, we fought for 7 years about, and had 2 or 3 ideas turned down because there were competing groups in town.
But at the time we did the batch project, that was close to crisis stage. I mean,
Right.
we were gonna literally, in another 2 to 3 years, have to probably close that school
Right,
and
exactly.
redistribute 500 or 400 elementary school students someplace else. I mean, so we don't wanna get to that point. That's the other point of this. We don't wanna get to that point where 5 to 7 years from now, we're looking at a situation where these buildings maybe can't be occupied any
Well, I think
longer
the
for
other
some
point we
reason.
need to make, and this doesn't,
That's a major point. We need to put that on paper somewhere.
well, we also need to make, and this, you know, the secondary school committee is gonna come up with their own presentation, but for our kids to be competitive in the 21st century coming out of this school system, if we don't get new facilities, our kids are gonna fall behind. They can be the smartest kids in the world, but if they're not dealing with the latest technology and everything else, the latest science labs, all the other schools in Cape Ann League
They're all
are pretty
done.
much new over the last
But
10 years.
That is the point I'm making. We have to make it clear to the public, the average person to understand that 2.5 million septic replacement doesn't meet that
Doesn't,
need.
doesn't get us anything, right, exactly.
So we're not quantifying right now, we're talking in generalities. We need to quantify those numbers a little more, so people understand it clearer, you know what I mean?
That will not spend a single cent toward the educational
Exactly.
need.
Right, and that's the quantification piece of it.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
to adjourn, we have a second. And no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, 4-0.